Why is it so hard to let go of the things that weigh us down? Why do we cling so tightly to our worries, as if holding them closer will somehow solve them? The truth is, worrying is like carrying a heavy backpack that was never meant to be yours. You weren't designed to carry it, and the longer you do, the more it breaks you down. God never intended for us to live this way. He never asked us to figure everything out on our own or to bear the weight of every problem that comes our way. In fact, He invites us to do the opposite. He says, "Cast all your cares on me because I care for you." 1 Peter 5:7. But what does that look like? How do you actually give it to God? It's not just a nice idea or a comforting phrase. It's a radical act of trust. It means taking the worries that consume your mind and saying, "God, this is yours. I'm not going to carry it anymore." We often think we're better off holding on to our worries. It gives us a false sense of control. If I just think about it enough, I'll find a solution. If I plan enough, I can avoid pain. But worry doesn't fix anything. It doesn't give you control, it steals your peace. Have you ever stopped to ask why you're so afraid to let go? Is it because you don't trust that God can handle it? Or maybe you think He won't handle it the way you want Him to. Letting go isn't easy, especially when the stakes feel high. But what's the alternative? Carrying the weight yourself? Letting it drain your energy, steal your joy, and cloud your mind? That's not freedom, that's bondage. Freedom comes when you finally release what was never yours to hold. It's like setting down a weight you didn't realize you'd been carrying for years. Suddenly you can breathe again. God's promise is simple but powerful. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. Rest doesn't come from solving all your problems. It comes from giving them to the one who can. But how do you actually do that? It starts with a decision, a moment where you say, "I can't do this anymore. God, I'm giving this to you." It's not about being passive or ignoring your responsibilities. It's about acknowledging that there are limits to what you can do and trusting God to handle the rest.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Think about the last time you couldn't sleep because you were worrying about something. Did staying awake solve it? Did running through every possible scenario bring clarity? Or did it just leave you exhausted? What if, instead of trying to control it, you prayed? What if you said, "God, I don't know what to do, but I know you do. Take this from me. Help me trust you." Giving it to God isn't a one-time event. It's a daily practice. Worries will come, but every time they do, you have a choice. You can carry them or you can surrender them. Have you ever noticed how your mind feels when you're consumed by worry? It's chaotic, noisy, like a storm you can't escape. But when you give those worries to God, there's a stillness that follows. It's like the storm calms and you can finally think clearly again. This isn't just about finding peace for yourself. It's about opening your mind to hear God's voice. Worry drowns out His whispers. It keeps you so focused on the problem that you miss His guidance. When you release your worries, you make space for Him to lead you. So, what are you holding on to right now? What's the thing that keeps you up at night, that you can't stop thinking about? And what would it feel like to finally let it go? God isn't asking you to have all the answers. He's asking you to trust Him, even when you don't know what's next. That's the essence of faith, not knowing the outcome but trusting the one who does. What if you could wake up tomorrow without the constant pressure of worry hanging over your head. Imagine starting your day with a clear mind and a heart full of peace, knowing you're not in this alone. That freedom isn't just a wish, it's what God wants for you. Worry is a thief. It robs you of time, energy, and joy. It takes up space in your mind that could be used for creativity, connection, and growth. It pulls you into a cycle of overthinking and fear that goes nowhere, and the worst part, it's entirely unnecessary. Jesus said, "Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life?" Matthew 6:27. Think about that. Worry doesn't make your life better. It doesn't fix your problems. It doesn't give you more control. If anything, it does the opposite. It takes from you. When you hold on to worry, you're essentially saying, "I trust my fears more than I trust God." That's a hard truth to face, but it's necessary, because until you're willing to admit it, you'll stay stuck in the same cycle. Letting go of worry isn't about pretending your problems don't exist. It's about choosing to believe that God is bigger than those problems. It's about trusting that He sees what you can't and that He's already working things out for your good. But trust isn't automatic. It's something you build step by step. And the first step is recognizing that worry is a choice. You might not be able to control the circumstances, but you can control how you respond to them. Grace creates a balance to your life. When worry creeps in, stop and ask yourself, what am I afraid of losing? Most of our worries come down to fear. Fear of losing control, security, relationships, or opportunities. But when you give those fears to God, you're saying, "I trust you to take care of what matters most to me." Here's something to think about. What's the worst thing that could happen if you let go of worry? Would the world fall apart, or would you finally feel the freedom you've been longing for? God isn't asking you to be fearless. He's asking you to trust Him in the face of fear. He's not expecting you to have all the answers. He's asking you to lean on the one who does. The Bible tells us to be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Philippians 4:6. Did you catch that? Be anxious for nothing. That means there's no situation, no problem, no uncertainty that should lead you to worry. Instead, bring it to God. But how often do we do the opposite? We carry our problems ourselves, trying to solve them with our limited strength, and when we finally pray, it's more like a last resort than our first response. What if prayer became your first response? What if, instead of letting worry spiral out of control, you stopped and said, "God, this is yours"? When you give your worries to God, something incredible happens. It's not that the problems instantly disappear, but the weight of them does. You start to see things differently. You realize you're not alone and you don't have to carry the burden anymore. But giving it to God isn't just about saying a quick prayer and moving on. It's about actively choosing to trust Him every time the worry tries to come back. Because let's be real, it will try to come back. Worry doesn't let go easily. That's where faith comes in. Faith isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily, sometimes moment-by-moment choice. It's saying, "I don't understand how this is going to work out, but I trust that you do." Living free from worry means replacing it with something better. Instead of letting your mind replay worst-case scenarios, fill it with God's promises. Instead of focusing on what you can't control, Focus on the one who controls everything. When you feel overwhelmed, remember this: God is for you. He's not distant or disinterested. He's actively involved in your life, working behind the scenes in ways you can't see. So stop holding on to the things you were never meant to carry. Let God take the weight. Free your mind from the chains of worry and step into the peace He has for you. Peace doesn't mean your life is free of challenges. It doesn't mean you won't face difficulties or feel pressure. True peace is the kind that holds you steady in the middle of chaos. It's not the absence of problems, it's the presence of God's control in your life. Most of us spend so much time fighting for control that we forget peace was never about control in the first place. It's about surrender. When you stop trying to force everything to go your way, you make space for God's way. And His way is always better. Think about the moments in your life when you've felt the most anxious. How much of that anxiety came from trying to predict, manage, or fix things that were never in your control? Anxiety thrives when we focus on what's uncertain. Peace grows when we trust the one who is certain. What would change in your life if you truly believed God had everything under control? If you stopped holding on so tightly to every decision, every outcome, every detail, and simply trusted that He's already worked it out? The peace God gives isn't just a temporary escape from stress. It's a deep, unshakable assurance that no matter what happens, you're held in His hands. It's a peace that doesn't crumble when plans fall apart because it's not based on plans, it's based on Him. When you look at your life, do you see a long list of things to fix, solve, or achieve? That's how worry keeps its grip on you. It convinces you that your worth is tied to what you can accomplish or control. But God's peace doesn't come from what you do. It comes from who He is. The Bible says in Isaiah 26:03, perfect peace doesn't come from having a perfect life. It comes from trusting a perfect God. When you're constantly stressed, it's like running a race with no finish line. You're exhausted, frustrated, and wondering if you'll ever feel relief. God's peace is the finish line. It's the place where you can stop running, stop striving, and finally rest. But resting in God's peace doesn't mean ignoring your responsibilities. It means doing what you can and trusting Him with the rest. It means showing up, but not carrying the pressure of outcomes that only He can control. How often do we let our worries steal the beauty of the present moment? We get so caught up in what could go wrong that we miss what's going right. Worry pulls you into the future, but peace keeps you grounded in today. God never intended for you to live a life consumed by worry. He created you for freedom, joy, and purpose. But you can't step into that purpose if your mind is constantly weighed down by stress. When you give your worries to God, you're not just letting go of stress. You're making room for something better. You're creating space for joy, gratitude, and clarity. You're freeing your mind to focus on what truly matters. What's stopping you from giving it all to Him? Is it fear, doubt, the belief that you have to hold it all together? Whatever it is, it's not bigger than God. He can handle your fears, your doubts, and your need for control. He's not asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to trust Him. Letting go isn't a one-time event. It's a daily decision. Every time worry tries to creep back in, you have the opportunity to say, "Not today." I've given this to God. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Living in God's peace means seeing your life through His perspective. It's recognizing that every challenge, every setback, and every unanswered question is part of a bigger story He's writing. It's knowing that even when you don't understand, He's working for your good. So stop carrying the weight you were never meant to bear. Stop letting worry dictate your days and steal your nights. Give it to God and free your mind to live the life He's called you to. God's peace isn't just an idea. It's real, it's available, and it's waiting for you. All you have to do is let go and trust Him with everything. And when you do, you'll discover a life that's lighter, freer, and more joyful than you ever thought possible. You don't have to wait until your problems are solved to experience peace. You can have it right now. Because peace doesn't depend on your circumstances. It depends on the God who holds your circumstances in His hands. Give it to God and free your mind, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. That's the kind of peace He offers. And that's the kind of peace you deserve to live in every single day.